Hi fantasy managers, welcome to FPL Team Talk. So in this video we're going to go through some of the new players to the Premier League this season. We're also going to have a look at some of the players that have been signed that may have moved within Premier League clubs. Which of these ones are very good options or assets for game week 1 and beyond. It's been a really useful exercise going through the statistics. For my team, I've been able to take a few players off the table that I was interested in before that I no longer am. And there's definitely been one or two surprises for me looking through these players. One in particular is a real candidate now that was going to go on my side, which wasn't before. So if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And in the meantime, let's have a look at the first player. Let's start straight away with one of the biggest signings of the summer so far. One of the biggest names in football at the moment. Let's start with Erling Haaland. He has moved to Manchester City. He's 11.5 million and classed as a striker in FPL. Last season, then, we know he moved from Borussia Dortmund. Bundesliga stats. He played 30 games, got 29 goals, 7 assists. His expected goal involvement was over 1. That's insanely good. And he overachieved that in actually what he ended up being able to produce. To put that in perspective, only Salah got an expected goal involvement of over 1 last year. If you had Son or Kane, you look at 0.7, 0.8, and that is really, really good. So if Haaland can transfer that sort of form into the Premiership, he is just going to be a bargain at 11.5 million and someone you're just going to have to own. Shots in and around the box for 93.76, that's absolutely fine. That's really good. So looking at it, you could argue, of course, that Borussia, he has only been there for a couple of years, are a big fish in a small pond. So looking at his previous season, 28 appearances, 27 goals, 6 assists. Once again, his XGI is still over 1, which is incredibly good. And he's still overachieving on that. Shots in and around the box, similar as well. Remember, this guy's only 21, so we expect him to only get better. But I hear what you're saying. Bundesliga could possibly be less of a weaker league than the Premier League. So let's compare his international stats then. For Norway, he's not been part of any major competition as of yet, because he's not in a side that is good enough to qualify for them. So 21 appearances for a side that you wouldn't put them high up in the ranking of world order for football internationally at the moment. 21 appearances, 20 goals, 3 assists. His actual goal involvement, 1.07. That's really good. How does that compare then with some of the other big guns, those other big players in international football? Let's compare him to Harry Kane. 71 appearances Kane's made. He's got 50 goals, which we know he's going to break the all-time England scoring record. 14 assists. His goal involvement, 0.91. That is really good, but it's still not good as Haaland. Haaland, you could get smaller sample size, so yes, I get that. But let's compare him to, say, one of the best, you would say, in international football. I tried to think who would be right up there. I went with Mbappe. 56 appearances, 27 goals, 21 assists. Again, insanely good, playing for probably, you would argue, a much stronger side than Norway. Goal involvement, 0.86. So the point really, I suppose, with Haaland is he is the real deal. On all the statistical fronts, he just looks like the real deal. He's got the goal involvement, the XGI. He looks like he's going to be nailed up front for Manchester City. He's playing for Manchester City, possibly the best side in the world, could you argue? Certainly winning the Premiership last year. They've got great fixtures at the start of the season. You're thinking that Bournemouth game, second game up. I just don't think I would want to be without him. He was in my side to start with, and I just don't want to take him out of the side. There's absolutely an argument that possibly Kane's got a better first week fixture. Could you jump from Kane to Haaland? I couldn't blame you for that. And Kane's definitely more established and more, we know what we're getting from him. But Haaland and those stats, I think I'd be really tempted to go Haaland. One thing on the nailed front, does Pep sort of wean him in slightly by giving him bench time? That's a little bit of a concern. There is history on this. Pep's previous signing, Grealish for 100 million, just came straight into the first 7 games he started. He put him straight in. Diaz, £65 million, he put in for the first 22 games. He just started him straight in. So on that basis, you could argue that Haaland is just going to be bled straight into that side. There's not a lot of competition elsewhere up front for him as well. But 11.5 million, his figures are insane. He's got something like, in his overall career playing for Leipzig, Borussia Dortmund and Man City, something like 104 appearances, 99 goals. He is just a machine. Playing up front for Manchester City, he's going to get plenty of opportunities with lots of De Bruyne, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva feeding him. I don't think I would risk going without him in those first few weeks. Next, one of the other big summer signings is Nunes, who plays for Liverpool. He's listed as a striker. He's £9 million. His season last year, obviously playing in La Liga NOS in Portugal, 41 games. He's certainly played a lot of games, so he's used to first team football. 34 goals is phenomenal record, 4 assists. His expected goal involvement was just under 1, so he's around about what he should be getting. Shots in and around the box, 3.78. So he's got plenty going forward. Obviously, a lot of money Liverpool paid for him to be playing up front. And I just have one or two reservations about him. He's definitely got the form and you think the confidence to come into this Liverpool side. They've got good fixtures. I think my only doubt, if I'm going to pay for a Liverpool, 9 million for a Liverpool player, he's taking up an invaluable Liverpool slot for me when you've got the likes of Alisson at 5.5, Trent at 7.5, Robertson at 7, and Salah clearly in that side, and Diaz, who's slightly cheaper as well. Is he going to get the minutes? And that's what I'm unsure about. Unless we get some sort of indication from Klopp at some point that he's pretty much nailed. And I think the only person that will be nailed in that side, especially in that midfield or striker slot, is going to be Salah. So there's the likes of Firmino, maybe even Harvey Elliott will come back in more into the reckoning as well. Jota as well. We have Diaz, Salah obviously keeping his spot. So someone's not going to be able to play every week. Is Nunes going to be part of that rotation? And it's a Liverpool valuable spot to have. That's what puts me off a little bit with him. But he could be a great asset. I'm not saying he won't be. But unless I know he's nailed in that Liverpool side, I'm quite favourable in just staying clear of him for now. Let's take a look at Ivan Perisic then. He's played under Conte before at Inter Milan. He's 33 years old, so he's got some miles under those legs of his. Last season stats playing in Serie A, 35 appearances, so he got through those games. 8 goals, 7 assists, playing left wing back, remember, so stats are really impressive. XGI 0.43 for a defender, that would be up with the likes of Trent, better than Robertson, close to what James is producing as well. Shots in and around the box, 90 minutes, 1.38. That's again really good, remember, for a fullback primarily. So 5.5 million he comes in for. In the Tottenham side, you have to say they've spent a bit of money. They brought Richarlison in. They've got Lenglet in on loan as well. Basuma's come in to strengthen that midfield. So you would expect them to be slightly better than they were last year. Maybe not challenging for the title, but embedded in that top 4. They were pretty decent under Conte towards the back end of the season. The whole season now with him, with a pre-season as well. He's listed as a defender. That's the first thing you'd have to say. So he's very attacking, playing as those wing backs. His price is quite appealing. The fixtures look a bit dodgy. And I think the only other thing would be, again, it's just the same as the Nunes, is the minutes. Will he play every week? They've got Europe to contend with. I expect him to play. We'll have to look in pre-season to start the season. And then maybe it's a decision we'll have to make later on whether he gets rotated, because I can't see him playing Champions League every week and then the Premier League as well. There's going to have to be a little bit of rotation. Which one is Perisic going to be favoured for? We'll just have to wait and see. 5.5, he's very much an option for me though. I think if he produces anything like those stats in the Premier League, playing for a good side, remember, then he's definitely got to be someone we've got to be considering. Let's stay with Tottenham then, and let's have a look at Richarlison. He's made the trip across from Everton to Tottenham. £60+ million, rumoured to be around for. £8 million is what it cost us in FPL. And his figures last year, pretty decent. Remember, he's playing for a side that was struggling at the foot of the table. Talismanic on penalties towards the end of the season as well. 30 appearances, 10 goals, 5 assists. His XGI, you know what? That's pretty respectable, 0.51. Shots in and around the box, 2.63. So all things considered, I think he has done pretty well. And over the last 3 or 4 years, whether it be for Everton, whether it be for Watford, his XGI has always been fairly consistent, around about the 0.4 to 0.5 mark, which again is decent. Now he's obviously playing for a side that is a lot stronger, looking at the top half of the side table. His price, you would say, is a little bit of a worry. He's in a sort of a price point where you can look at the likes of Diaz, Foden, Mahrez, Maddison. So would you go for Richarlison over them? He is listed as a forward, so his price I think is okay. How much minutes and what position is he going to be playing in? I think that's what would worry me the most about Richarlison. Is he going to be playing up front alongside Harry Kane? Is he going to be playing on one side and Son the other, and kind of have a sort of a three-pronged attack, a bit like Liverpool do? Whereabouts is he going to play? Is he going to be rotated heavily? all of these questions, just so many question marks hanging over Richarlison at the moment. And on top of that, he is suspended through the incident with the flare from the end of last season, so he'll miss that first juicy game against Southampton, which is a game you would really want him to be involved in. And after that, the fixtures don't look amazing for Tottenham either. So all of these things considered, unless you want to book a transfer in and you really desperately want Richarlison, I'm going to be staying clear of him now until I think the water's a little bit clearer. Just look a bit murky at the moment. I don't quite know what his role's going to be in that side, because I can't see how they're going to fit Kane, Kulusevski, Richarlison and Son. Are they all going to play as a 4 across the top and still play 5 across the back? So it's a little bit unsure. Maybe those pre-season fixtures will get more information, but it's a lot of money if you bring him in now to have sat on your bench ready for the following game weeks. So for me, Richarlison at the moment is just someone I think I'm going to stay away from. Let's take a look at one of those players that is definitely in my draft side for game week 1. That's Jesus, who's playing for Arsenal. He's 8 million on the FPL site. Last season, 28 appearances, 8 goals, 8 assists, a decent XGI, you have to say, of 0.77. That would rate up alongside the likes of Harry Kane, just behind Son. So he'd be right up there in terms of strikers with great XGIs. Shots in and around the box per 90, decent at 3 goals a game. So he had a decent season. He was playing in lots of different positions. Clearly playing for a much higher level side, Manchester City, than Arsenal. But he's now the main man at Arsenal. Price, you would say, is decent, 8 million. I think that's a good price for him. He's absolutely nailed on up front, you would say. He hasn't moved to Arsenal to play in on the bench and play second fiddle. The fixtures look good. I can't really come up with many downsides to Jesus. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't be playing. I like the price, good fixtures, decent side. He's in my starting lineup. Let's have a look at his compatriot then. Another player they brought in, Vieira. 27 appearances playing in the Liga NOS last year. 6 goals, 14 assists. Pretty decent. 20 goal involvements inside 27 games. His XGI is not massively impressive though, 0.35. So he overachieved on that. And again, he's not picking up many shots in and around the box. 1.7 isn't particularly impressive. So for me, there's a few blank sort of areas around Vieira that I can't get answers to. I think the price is decent. I don't know what position he's going to be playing. It'd be interesting to see how he fits into that side. Does he take Odegaard's place? Does he play alongside Odegaard and they have just one man sitting behind? Maybe a party with Martinelli out wide, Saka on the other side, and then Jesus up front. It's just a few questions that I need answering before I'm prepared to put anything on Vieira, because there's a few other Arsenal assets that I think I would much rather go for than Vieira. 6 million, he looks decent. If he's going to play every week, he would maybe, if he's going to offer something better than Odegaard, and even then if I go for Odegaard, but likes of Saka, that would definitely be interesting. I'm not sure I would want to triple up on an Arsenal team that includes Vieira. So for me, I'm going to pass on at the moment, just keep an eye on him, but not someone I'm going to be putting into my drafts anytime soon. Next up, let's have a look at Undov then. So Brighton, what a season he had with Eredivisie. So he comes back full of confidence, 39 appearances playing in Eredivisie, 26 goals, 12 assists. So his XG, expected goal involvement, pretty much a 1. So every game he pretty much produced something, and that's only Salah would have done slightly better than that if that was in the Premiership last season. The main concern is clearly that's in the Eredivisie. The price looks fantastic at 5.5. The stats all stack up. How many minutes is he going to get? Is Potter going to put him as his number 1 man? Is Welbeck, Maupay, Casado all sort of keep ahead of him in that pecking order? For 5.5, if he starts and it looks like he's got that number 9 shirt, yes, he becomes an option. But until I see that, I think he's just going to stay on my watch list for now and see what happens. But he's definitely my 5.5, one of the cheapest strikers who's playing up front for a pretty good side. He's going to be of interest to us, one to watch. Next up then, let's have a look at, and I'm going to try and pronounce him as Awonini. He used to play for Liverpool, went across to Union Berlin. He had a really good season for them. 31 appearances, 15 goals, 11 assists. XG is really decent at 0.69. So he had a couple of years at Union Berlin, really broke through last year. 6 million, he looks really cheap. He's going to be the main man for Forest. They spent a lot of money on him. You expect him to be absolutely nailed in that side. And at 6 million, Undaf aside, he looks like they're probably one of the cheapest options for a nailed striker. The only issue I've got is how good an attacking are Forest going to be? They've spent a lot of money, but I'm just not convinced yet that I would go for him. I think for his price point up front, if I had 6 million, I needed a space. Yes, I think he might possibly be in there at the moment, but Forest, newly promoted side, just not sure about him just yet, taking up one of my striker slot. I want to go on the watch list, but not in my draft just yet. Let's have a look at an old friend, well not an old, but a friend of the Premier League managers from a couple of years ago. He was really highly fancied. A lot of people went for him at the start of the season, and he paid dividends towards the beginning of it. Really dropped off though in his last season in the Premier League. I think he ended up on the bench. For 7 million, he just feels a little bit heavy at that price. But you look at that record last year in the Championship, 44 appearances, 43 goals, 7 assists, expected XGI of 0.93. Again, he'd be right up there with any Premiership striker with that. We'd all be on him. Clearly, though, it's a Championship, so those stats cannot equate to the Premier League. He's even overachieved his XGI in that. Shots in around about 4.62, and Fulham were scoring goals for fun. So we won't expect him to get as many chances. It's just how clinical is he going to be. It's interesting when we look at his stats. The last time he played in the Premier League, he had 27 appearances, only scored 3 goals with 3 assists. So clearly, a lot of FPL managers would have had their fingers burnt with him. Shots in and around the box 3.8. Expected goal involvement was 0.57. So his price is looking okay, I would say. Nailed, yes, he will be nailed and on pens. It's a question of, will he perform? Which Mitrovic is going to turn up? I've seen Mitrovic in World Cups just look absolutely unplayable. Last time he was in the Premiership, didn't have particularly a happy time. And how effective and competitive will Fulham be? All these things are going to affect him. At 7 million, I'm just not prepared to go for him. Next up, we'll have a look at Sinistra, who has come in at Leeds, a big money signing, bigger things expected from him. 30 appearances, clearly different league, 12 goals, 7 assists, decent XGI of 0.48. That looks fine as well. Shots in the box 2.62. He looks, for all intents and purposes, as if he's a replacement for Rafinha, and we've just got to keep an eye on what happens there, because he could be one we'd be really interested in as well, depending on where he moves. But Sinistera, 6.5, decent price. Just a few things, again, unsure about him. You expect him to be nailed in that lead side for the price tag. Different leagues, so the stats you would expect to go down. And Leeds, what sort of side are Leeds going to be? You're just not sure what sort of identity Jesse March is going to have with this Leeds side. Are they going to be a tight side, battling side who will nick a goal? Are they going to be as free-flowing and free-scoring as they were under Bielsa? What sort of identity are they going to have? And what is Sinister's involvement and role in this team going to be? So there's a few things that leaves me with doubts over Sinistera. 6.5 is not a good enough price that I want to jump on him arbitrarily. I just think I need to watch this space and have a look at Sinistera before we go any further. Next and final player that we're going to have a look at, and I have to say this is one of my favourites, so maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit on Raheem Sterling. The fee has been agreed, and it looks like, for all intents and purposes, he will be a Chelsea player come the start of the season. 10 million is not a cheap or small amount of money, and it's an awkward amount of money as well, because it leaves you with a few decisions to make in terms of Salah and Son. It's not an either or. It's perhaps, you can't get them in alongside them. Last season, then, 30 appearances, top goal scorer, I think, for Manchester City, 13 goals, 7 assists. For a player that was in and out of favour all season, never really seemed to get a good run of games. His XGI is still superb, 0.88, right up there with the best players in FPL. Shots in and around the box, 2.46. Not as high as it perhaps could be, but still perfectly reasonable and respectable. If we look back at some of his previous seasons, he's just been really consistent, I think. The season before last, his stats, he had 31 appearances, so always around about 30 appearances mark, 10 goals, 9 assists. A similar sort of season, you say, goal involvement a little bit down. He didn't have an effective season, 0.66. Again, shots in and around the box, very similar as that we were. So that was 2 years ago rather than last season. If we go back a season again, 33 appearances, similar sort of amount of time. He's one of his most protected seasons, 20 goals, 6 assists, XGI of 0.91. Shots in and around the box, 3.36. This is one of his highest scoring seasons that he had. We know how good a player he is from the England matches. If he gets a starting role playing for Chelsea, you just start to wonder how good he could be playing in one of those shirts in a sideways appreciated, possibly playing up front as well. If he's going there, you assume he's going to be nailed. The stats line up. It's the price. I think if he's playing up front alongside the likes of Havertz, alongside Werner maybe, then I think that price suddenly becomes really attractive. 10 million for a player up front alongside Chelsea, whose stats in year and out are knocking around the 0.7, 0.8 XGI mark, I think are really good. He's one that I would definitely keep an eye on for pre-season, and a player that I'm really tempted to start to find a way into my side. At 10 million, he's not going to be cheap. But if this all goes through, I think he could be a really big asset for FPL managers this season. That's all for this one then. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you enjoy your FPL content. Let me know in the comments below, who are you interested out of these players? If there's someone I missed that you want me to look into or that you should bring into your FPL side. In the meantime, take care, good luck, speak to you soon.